It's 9 a.m. on the East Coast, and if you're just joining us this morning, we have major breaking news. Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro has been captured by U.S. forces. President Trump confirming the large-scale U.S. military operation overnight.
Attorney General Pam Bondi confirming Maduro and his wife face drug and weapons charges in the U.S. And about 20 minutes ago, Vice President J.D. Vance revealing President Trump offered Maduro multiple off-ramps.
All this comes after explosions rocked the capital of Caracas and surrounding states early this morning. President Trump is expected to hold a news conference from Mar-a-Lago at 11 a.m. this morning. But first, he joins us now by phone. And let's get right to the President of the United States, Donald Trump. President Trump, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning.
So you've had quite a busy evening. Tell us about it.
It was slightly busy, I would say. It was very dark all over, especially in Venezuela. The team did an incredible job. They rehearsed and practiced like nobody's ever seen. And I was told by real military people, that there's no other country on earth that can do such a maneuver. If you would have seen what happened, I mean, I watched it literally like I was watching a television show. And if you would have seen the speed, the violence, you know, they say that, the speed, the violence, they use that term. It's it was an amazing thing, an amazing job that these people did. There's nobody else could have done anything like it.
You're at Mar-a-Lago right now. How were you able to watch this?
Well, we watched it from a room. We had a room, and we watched it, and we watched every aspect of it. We were surrounded by lots of people, including generals, and they knew everything that was happening, and it was very complex, extremely complex, the whole maneuver, the landings, the number of aircraft, which were a massive number, the number of helicopters, a different type of helicopters, different type of fighter jets. We had a fighter jet for every possible situation, and they just broke in, and they broke into places that were not really able to be broke into, you know, steel doors that were put there for just this reason, and they got taken out in a matter of seconds. I've never seen anything like it, actually.
And you were able to watch this in real time.
Yeah, and don't forget, I've done some pretty good ones in other parts of the world, okay? I've done some pretty good ones, but I've never seen anything like this. I was able to watch it in real time, and I watched every aspect of it, and I listened to the communication between, you know, where we were in Florida and out in the field in Venezuela. And it was amazing to see the professionalism, the quality of leadership, the professionalism. General Raisin Kane is fantastic. Don't forget, we did another one not so long ago. It was called the knocking out of the Iranian nuclear threat, the nuclear power. And that was unbelievable what they did there. And this is something that, gee, I don't know, it's amazing. And to have a few injuries, but no death on our side is really amazing.
Mr. President, critics will say that strong action can risk escalation, but history has shown us that weakness can truly invite chaos. And this military operation clearly sends a message to our adversaries around the world, China, Iran, Russia, that we are no longer the weak administration that we had for 4 years under former President Biden, who tolerated narco-terrorism. What is next for the United States and Venezuela?
Well, we're very strong, and very importantly, if you look at drugs through the oceans, through the seas, they're down 97%. That's the boats. It's sort of related to this, as you know. The drugs are way down, and it's getting very, very tough. It's a whole different look. We have a whole different country. We have a country now that's respected. We have a country. I built the military in my first term, and they gave a little chunk of it away, but it was a lot. But it was a little chunk relative to what we built. But they gave it to Afghanistan so stupidly. It was one of the. Compare this to Afghanistan, where we were a laughing stock all over the world. We're not a laughing stock anymore. No, we have the greatest military in the world by far. We have the greatest equipment, military equipment in the world by far. And you had to see this in real time. You had to see this, the professionalism and the bravery, everything about it. And you almost couldn't hold them back. It was like they wanted to go so badly. And most people would have said, I'll take a pass. I know that Charlie would have wanted to go because Charlie's a very brave person. But I know a lot of other people would have said, I think I'll pass on this one. Let's watch it on television.
So
it's been amazing to see how good they were, how professional they were, how incredible the equipment we have is. I mean, the level of equipment and to see how it worked so perfectly. And, you know, if you compare this to attacks on Iran over the years with, you know, helicopters crashing into each other, the whole thing was a mess. The Jimmy Carter situation, which was a mess, and every other situation compared to this, nobody's ever seen like this. Look, the Iranian attack, knocking out their nuclear power was big. We had peace in the Middle East, and we have it. Without that, you could never have peace in the Middle East. We knocked them out, and look what's happening now to Iran, but we knocked it out. That was, it could not have been better, and this could not have been better. I don't even know which is, these are both really important. If you think about equal and importance, I wonder how it's going to be rated, but knocking out the nuclear power of, think of it, they were ready, they were within 2 months, they would have been a nuclear power. And comparing that to this in a certain different way, I think this might have been actually more complex.
Well, it's interesting.
But that was something that was amazing.
It's interesting, Mr. President. We've looked, our own Lucas Tomlinson, our reporter here, I don't know if you knew this intentionally, but the capture of Maduro and his wife coincides with the 6th anniversary of your taking out the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's Qasem Soleimani. Interestingly, it's six years after. But let me ask you a question, Mr. President. Because
by the way, that was the third thing, and we have a fourth. We got Soleimani. We have taken out so many. Look at what we did to the leader of ISIS, who's no longer with us, right? And everybody was after for 20 years, and we got him. We've done a lot, but this was something, maybe because it's fresh in our minds, because again, the Iranian situation was so big, knocking that out, and the B-2 bomber, every single missile hit its target, and the target was an air shaft.
Right.
Dark at night. Think of that. Dark at night, no moon. You couldn't see a thing. And every missile went right through that air shaft and just obliterated the place. So that was amazing. And this was amazing.
I wonder, Mr. President, though, I want to ask you because from your vice president, J.D. Vance, said that the message is pretty clear. The drug trafficking must stop. So was this operation a message that you're sending to Mexico, to Claudia Sheinbaum, the president there?
Well, it wasn't meant to be, and we're very friendly with her. She's a good woman, but the cartels are running Mexico. She's not running Mexico. The cartels are running Mexico. And we could be politically correct and be nice and say, oh, yes, she is. No, she's very, she's very frightened of the cartels. They're running Mexico. And I've asked her numerous times, would you like us to take out the cartels? No, Mr. President. No, please. So we have to do something because we lost. The real number is 300,000 people, in my opinion. They like to say 100,000. 100,000 is a lot of people, but the real number is 300,000 people. And we lost it to drugs, and they come in through the southern border, mostly the southern border. Plenty come in through Canada, too, by the way, in case you don't know. Yeah. But they come in through the southern border, and something's going to have to be done with Mexico.
Why did you decide to do this morning?
Are you talking about calling you people or the shot?
No, taking out
I'm not sure.
Maduro.
I'm not sure which is worse. If you want to know the truth, I'm calling you. I haven't spoken to anybody else because Charlie Hurd has been a great friend of mine for a long time. He was with me when it was not fashionable, and those are the people I like. He was with me, Charlie, when it was not at all fashionable. So that's the reason I'm doing this. And your show is great. You're doing a great job. What a good team.
But I meant, why did you make the decision to take out Maduro this morning? And what was Maduro doing when our guys came in on him?
So we were going to do this 4 days ago, but the weather was not perfect. The weather has to be perfect. And we had just the perfect weather. We had, very good. A little bit few more clouds than we thought, but it was good. We waited 4 days. We were going to do this 4 days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days ago. And then all of a sudden it opened up and we said go. And I'll tell you, it was just amazing. And what was he doing? He was in a very highly guarded, like a fortress, actually. He was in a fortress. You know, that we had nobody killed was amazing. I think we had nobody killed, I have to say, because a couple of guys were hit, but they came back and they're supposed to be in pretty good shape. But that we had nobody killed, that we lost no aircraft. You know, everything came back. We got it all back. One of them was hit pretty hard, but a helicopter, but we got it back. But it just was the right time to do it. We had to do it because it's a war. We're losing 300,000 people a year. We don't lose that much in a war, okay, if you look. And we had to do it. But he was in a house that was more like a fortress than a house. It had steel doors. It had what they call a safety space where it's, you know, solid steel all around. He didn't get that space closed. He was trying to get into it, but he got bum rushed so fast that he didn't get into that. We were prepared. We had, you know, massive blowtorches and everything else that you need to get through that steel, but we didn't need it. He didn't make it to that area of the house.
Mr. President, your war on narcoterrorism from our southern border and beyond clearly will save American lives. Moving forward for Venezuela, what do you think is next for the Venezuelan people now that you have removed Maduro so that he can face American justice?
Well, we're making that decision now. We can't take a chance on letting somebody else run and just take over where he left or left off. So we're making that decision now. We'll be involved in it very much. And we want to do liberty for the people. We want to, you know, have a great relationship. I think the people of Venezuela are very, very happy because they love the United States. You know, they were run by essentially a dictatorship or worse. It couldn't have been worse. It was a terrible thing that was taking place in Venezuela. But look, tremendous numbers of people were being killed through drugs. And what they did to our country in sending prisoners and people from mental institutions and drug lords and everything, they sent them by the hundreds of thousands of people into our country. And that is just unforgivable. That's why, you know, he wanted to negotiate at the end, and I didn't want to negotiate. I said, nope, we got to do it. You know, he was trying to negotiate at the end. You probably saw that. And trying hard to make a deal. And I said, and, you know, this could have been a very foolish thing if it didn't work out. But I said, nope, we can't do it. What he did with drugs was bad. What he did with a lot of other things was bad. But what he did was sending hundreds of thousands of Tren de Aragua and drug dealers. And they emptied out their jails into our country. They emptied out, if you think about it, they emptied out all of their mental institutions into our country. What he did there, and every other thing, is unforgivable.
Mr. President, you're already getting reaction from members of Congress on both sides. One Democrat, Jim McGovern, is saying that you did not get authorization from Congress. And he says Trump just launched an unjustified illegal strike on Venezuela. Wanted to get your reaction to that.
Well, look, these are weak, stupid people, and they're trying to save themselves from almost destroying our country. If I didn't get elected, our country would not, I don't even think we'd have a country right now. We were heading down the path of destruction. We had inflation. We had high prices. They're the ones that caused high prices, not us. We're bringing the prices way down. We have oil now in many places, $1.99 a gallon. And, you know, when you do oil, everything follows, but everything is following. But, no, they would have destroyed our country. If we didn't get elected, if Kamala or a Joe type got elected, if that group got elected. But if Kamala got elected, I don't think at this point we would even have a country. We were laughed at all over the world. The money was flowing out. Everybody was leaving. The companies were leaving. The people were leaving. The wealth was leaving. We have $18 trillion coming back into our country, the biggest number in the history of the world. The second biggest number was $3 trillion. We're at $18 trillion, and it's building factories and plants. It's doing things that no country has ever seen before. But as far as last night is concerned, it was really genius. What they did is genius. And the Democrats, maybe they'll take a shot. They'll take a shot. All they do is complain. They don't talk about, they should say, you know what, we did a great job. We're stopping drugs from coming into this country. And nobody's been able to do it until we came along. But they should say, great job. They shouldn't say, oh, gee, maybe it's not constitutional. The same old stuff that we've been hearing for years and years and years. They did an incredible job. These men and women that went out there last night, the courage they had, going into an area where, all the lights were turned off. We turned off almost all of the lights in Caracas. I mean, this thing was so organized. And they go into a dark space with machine guns facing them all over the place. And then you hear from a guy that I'd never even heard of him, but you hear from some congressman saying, oh, this is so terrible. We're saving lives. And by the way, the boats, every boat, because that's sort of related to this, every boat that we hit saves 25,000 lives.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get any hosannas or thanks from certain Democrats in Congress, that's for sure. But one of the things, you've already obviously cracked down on these drug boats. You've also cracked down on these illegal oil shipments coming out of Venezuela. The countries that negotiate with Venezuela for that illegal oil are already starting to suffer. What do you see as the future of Venezuela's oil industry?
Well, I see that we're going to be very strongly involved in it. That's all. I mean, what can I say? We have the greatest oil companies in the world, the biggest, the greatest, and we're going to be very much involved in it. We can't do something like this, and we're prepared. We were prepared to do a second wave. We were all set, and this was so lethal, this was so powerful that we didn't have to, but we're prepared. We're out there with an armada like nobody's ever seen before, and we're prepared. And frankly, probably thought we were going to have to do it, but we were prepared for a second wave going in.
Mr. President, sorry, Nicole, could you follow up on one thing? And that was when part of Vice President Vance's tweet about an hour ago said that you offered several off-ramps to Maduro that he didn't take. What did those off-ramps look like?
Well, basically, I said you have to give up. You have to surrender. And he was close. But in the end, I really didn't. We had to do something that was really much more surgical, much more powerful. This was much more powerful than anything we could have done. This is amazing. And we learned a lot going into. We learned a lot of things, but this was a very important symbol. And I had discussions. I actually spoke to him myself, but I said, you have to give up. You have to surrender.
When did you speak to him?
He was not willing. A week ago. A couple of times, but a week ago.
Mr. President, this is clearly a signature moment for your administration, this military strike, the capture of Maduro.
We've had a lot of signature moments, if you really think about it.
It certainly was. Let's add it to the list, one of the signature moments. But what do you say to the people waking up to this news this morning who are concerned that these actions may result in prolonged involvement of U.S. military in Venezuela?
Well, first of all, I say that what we're doing is saving lives because the drug trafficking is so bad. It's gotten so out of control. And, when you think 97% of the drugs coming in by sea, by ocean, by waterway, 97% down. It's almost nothing left. You don't see ships. You don't see anybody. You see very few ships coming in loaded up with, hundreds of bags of fentanyl, cocaine, and everything else you can imagine. It's virtually stopped. And we'll stop it on land. And this was one of the things that we did to stop it on land. We had to do this. In order to stop it on land, this was a part of it. There are other parts and there are other areas, frankly. But what they did is really amazing. And I think it sends a signal. We're not going to be pushed around as a country anymore by these countries where we want to be politically correct all the time. They're killing our people.
Does.
If we had a war, if you lost 300,000 people, in the Civil War, we lost 600,000 people. We lose 300,000 people a year to drugs. And we're not going to allow it anymore with any country.
You said that you were prepared for a second wave, and I assume that you still are. But what does the future look like for the Maduro loyalists who are still in Caracas and I assume have not yet fled or been removed?
Well, if they stay loyal, the future is really bad. Really bad for them. If they convert, there's a conversion factor. I would say most of them have converted. He's had very little loyalty. In fact, I noticed that today that some people are marching on the street waving flags, and they're very in support. They have American flags being waved on the streets. So, I mean, I think he's got very little support. Look, he was a dictator that the people hated. So I don't see a lot of that. I don't think we're going to see a lot of that.
Well, will you, Mr. President, throw your support behind opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, who, as you recall, won the Nobel Peace Prize and then in turn dedicated it to you for your efforts in pressuring Maduro? Are you going to fully support her to take over to run the country?
Well, we're going to have to look at it. Right now, they have a vice president, as you know. I mean, I don't know about what kind of an election that was, but, you know, the election of Maduro was a disgrace, just like my election was a disgrace. 2020 was a disgrace, and, you know, a real disgrace. Now, 2024 was too big to rig, but what he did was, I mean, his was open. I would say, frankly, you want to know the truth? I think Charlie would testify this. It wasn't a hell of a lot worse than what they did to us in 2020. It was our election was a disgrace in 2020, and everyone knows it. And now it's come out, and it's come out even in the legal form. But it was disgraceful. He had an election that was a rigged election, and the people have no love for him. That's for sure. He had very little loyalty, if any loyalty. He was a dictator who was a tough cookie, and he ran it tough, and the people can't believe they got so lucky.
Mr. President, what do you make of the fact that just hours before the airstrike, there was a Chinese delegation meeting with Nicolas Maduro, and we have yet to hear from China any sort of comment on the attacks?
I know nothing about that, but I have a very good relationship with President Xi, and there's not going to be a problem. And they're going to get oil. We're going to allow people to have oil. But we can't take a chance after having done this incredible thing last night of letting somebody else take over, where we have to do it again. We can do it again, too. Nobody can stop us. There's nobody that has the capability that we have. You know, when I watch that war in Russia going on and on and on and everybody dying, and it's like it's primitive. It's primitive. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Could you tell us, Mr. President, a little bit more? Because you're talking about the precision of this operation and the brave men and women. Was this Delta Force guys? Were this Navy SEALs? Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, they're the most highly trained soldiers in the world. There's nobody that has their talent, because it's talent. It's not just bravery. It's bravery. You have to have the bravery, but it's talent. Nobody has talent like this, and nobody has equipment like we have. I mean, everything was pinpoint. They had everything. They practiced. They actually built a house which was identical to the one they went into, with all the safes and all the steel all over the place, and, you know, at the top of stairways and rooms.
It was Delta Force, sir?
I don't want to say, but I will say this. I'm having a news conference in just a little while, so therefore I'm going to have to get off this line pretty soon, but I'm having a news conference at 11, and we're going to be talking about it. And I will say that I'm very proud to be an American.
As are we, Mr. President. Will we be hearing from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth about what went into the planning and the execution of this incredible operation?
Yes, and General Kane and some other people, they'll be telling you things that we can't tell you. We're not going to say everything, because we have things that nobody even knows about. Nobody has even a clue about, and we don't want to talk about that. And there's no reason to. But you'll be seeing a lot of things. So we're going to have a pretty open news conference, and we have to make sure that Venezuela doesn't go bad again. It went bad. You know, it was a great country 20 years ago, and now it's horrible. Remember, I used to say that if they get elected, the other side, the people that we're talking about, if they get elected in our country, It will be Venezuela on steroids. Do you remember that? I used to say
Yes.
that all the time, Charlie, right?
Indeed.
We would have been Venezuela on steroids, meaning we would have been a bigger version of Venezuela. But the end result, we would have been a failed nation. Had they gotten elected, we would have been a failed nation. So I'll get ready for a news conference.
Real quickly before we let you go, though, can you tell us where Maduro and his wife are right this second?
Well, they'll be heading to New York. You know, they were indicted in New York, and also.
So are they taken to a ship first, and then?
Yes, to Iwo Jima. They're on a ship, but they'll be heading into New York. The helicopters took them out, and they went by helicopter in a nice flight. I'm sure they loved it. But they've killed a lot of people. Remember that they killed a lot of people, and
a lot of Americans.
Even people in their own country. They killed a lot of people to maintain power. He's a very vicious person.
Well, President Trump, I'm incredibly grateful to you for coming on this morning. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time. We know that you've got a lot on your plate these days, but we're very appreciative, and we look forward to your press conference at 11.
Well, remember one thing. Our country now, it's not because of this, but long before this, almost from the time I took office, it's gone so fast. Our country is hotter than it's ever been before. And we had a dead country a year and a half ago. We had a dead country. This country was dead with Biden and with that group of people. And if we had that group extended through Kamala, this country would have been dead. But we had a dead country.
She was the border czar.
Well, now look at the border. We have nobody coming in through the border anymore. Look at that. So, that's right. The border czar. She was our border czar. She would have been worse as a president than she was as a border czar. So, anyway, which is pretty bad. Have a good time. Thank you very much,
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Charlie.
Yes, sir.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.